All right, well, thank you all for coming. We are the Sexual Violence Prevention Association, and we're doing this event. It's a Massachusetts-specific event advocating for change for a number of bills regarding sexual violence prevention. We're going to talk first about some K-12 bills, and then we're going to go into some other just general bills in Massachusetts. And this is part of the SECA's Sex Ed Week of Action, which was a really cool event that they do every year, promoting sex ed across the United States. And so first, we're just going to do an acknowledgement and a content warning. So we are going to talk a little bit about sexual violence. We're not going to go into too much detail. It's going to be mostly surface level stuff, but we do just like to let people know we're going to be talking about sexual violence and child sexual abuse in this presentation. And then our learning objectives and outcomes. So this webinar will educate all participants and empower you to take action on some pending bills in Massachusetts that promote sexual violence prevention. So our goal is that you will learn the benefits of these policies and that you'll be able to take action during this meeting by participating in our letter writing campaign, and that you'll contact your state representatives, urging them to support these bills, and that you'll be empowered to take action on similar issues in the future. And then we also encourage others to take action by sharing event materials afterwards so that you'll share this with your community and we can have an even bigger impact. So this is our agenda. We're going to start with a little bit about us. Then we're going to go through a number of bills. This is the about us. Then we're going to go through a number of bills here. And then we're going to do the letter writing during this meeting. And then you can send it to your friends and loved ones and family afterwards. So first, a little bit about us as an organization. We are the Sexual Violence Prevention Association. We are a national nonprofit dedicated to preventing sexual violence systemically. So what that means is that we work at the individual level, doing stuff with individuals themselves, as well as interpersonal things. But we also work at the institutional level, so that's K-12 schools, colleges, and companies. And then we also work at that systemic level, which is like research, media, and policy. And so today, I would argue with this presentation, what we're mostly working on is actually that individual and interpersonal level by engaging with y'all and having you engage with your community. The K-12 level, because a lot of the bills are regarding K-12 schools, and then also the policy level by taking action on legislation. Our organization is led by marginalized survivors. Over 70% of our board are Black and Indigenous or other people of color. 85% of our board are LGBTQ+, 60% are disabled or neurodivergent, and 100% of our board and leadership are survivors. And this is just a little bit about our impact. So to date, we have educated nearly 33,000 people on sexual violence prevention, including 188 administrators who have improved their campus or workplace policies as a result of our programs and resources. And over 100,000 students have been served by our campus chapters and programs. And then we also have 52 legislative advocacy actions. So this one isn't even included in there because this is all numbers that ended at the end of 2023. But we've also done judicial advocacy actions, some awards and coalitions, and some other things as well. And you can access the impact report. These slides will be available to you later on, and you will be able to access that impact report in the future. And so we're going to start by talking about comprehensive sex education, and I'm going to pass it over to Michelle. I guess we didn't really introduce ourselves, so we can do that really quickly. I'm Omni. I'm the founder and CEO of the SVPA, and this is Michelle. And Michelle, you can introduce yourself, and then the bills.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Michelle. I'm the policy director of the SVPA. I'm going to be going over some of the K through 12 bills that we're going to feature today. So we're going to start off focusing on comprehensive sex education. That's going to start off with the Healthy Youth Act. There are a couple different bills. So the Healthy Youth Act is currently in the House and the Senate. We can move on to the next slide. So the description of what the Healthy Youth Act is, so it's covering comprehensive sex education. There was recently, the Massachusetts had a new health and education framework introduced, and that was passed. So this bill kind of goes along that framework. So this bill requires that any school district that teaches sex education must ensure that it meets a few different requirements. So education must be consent-based. It has to be medically accurate and age appropriate. It has to be LGBTQ+ inclusive. And it also covers different topics such as healthy relationships and communication skills. And we just also want to know that this is an opt-out rather than an opt-in policy. So another thing that the Healthy Youth Act does is it requires reporting and data collection. So every 2 years, each school district will basically file reports regarding the health education programs in their schools, and the reports will also be made available to the public. So if you are a researcher like I am, this is something that you probably really want to review and be note of. What basically it requires is that there's a description of any health-related curricula offered. So it's going to be an inventory of that. You're also going to be inventorying the approximate number of hours spent on health education, the number of students enrolled in the education classes, and the number of students who withdrew. So those that may have opted out of sexual health education. So the Healthy Youth Act has a few benefits as well. First, we just want to, oh, sorry, what? Oh, I thought so. First, I just want to note that Massachusetts youth deserve the right to high quality sex education. So that's part of what this bill requires. This is covered by requiring age appropriate education, medically accurate education. And also we want to point out that consent is not really covered in other sex education. So to really have it be comprehensive, we want to make sure it includes consent, healthy relationships, and also STD or STI and pregnancy prevention. Most importantly, too, we want to make sure it's inclusive of gender expression, gender identity, and all different sexual orientations. But that's not all. There's a couple other benefits. Having this comprehensive type of education really promotes empowering youth and having inclusive sex education for all young individuals. This bill will raise awareness of societal and media messaging regarding sex and gender as well. So really empowering youth to be able to read media and having those opportunities to understand where they can kind of prevent dating sexual violence. So since there is going to be continuous data collection, it also requires the curriculum to be updated, and then this is centrally managed by the state itself. Additionally, there's going to be increased community and parental involvement in sex education with this bill. This bill is very important right now. It's actually in the Senate Ways and Means Committee right now. It's going to be voted on tomorrow. So we want to make sure that we reach out to our legislators and really let them know to pass this bill.
Yeah.
Yes.
You just went through that. One quick thing before we move on, is anybody in the weight room? I can't see it while I'm sharing my screen. And I can't tell if I disabled the waiting room, and I can't tell if that was helpful or hurtful. And then the other quick thing, we're going to talk about school abuse prevention, and we're about to talk about the SHIELD Act, which is a child sexual abuse prevention bill. But one thing I did want to mention, we're going to send these slides out afterwards, and the links right here go to the bill text. So if you want to read the bill text, or if you want to just check, the Massachusetts Legislator Gov site to see what the status of the bill is, you can do that, during or after this presentation. It's just right here.
All right, so like Omni mentioned, the first bill that we're going to talk about under the school abuse prevention is going to be the SHIELD Act. So the SHIELD Act itself requires that schools and also youth serving organizations, so that can be organizations such as Boy Scouts of America, the YMCA, similar organizations to that. So they are supposed to adopt abuse prevention policies. These are going to be developed by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, or also known as DESE. So these are policies that will support the prevention of sexual abuse. It's required that a code of conduct be outlined for these employees so that they can identify inappropriate behaviors between either for teachers and also students, or so employees and also clients, or whether it be like Boy Scouts or just members of the youth groups or youth organizations. It also requires that abuse prevention policies be reviewed and updated at least once every 5 years to include the best practices and keep up to date with research. Additionally, this bill requires training for mandated reporters. So we want to make sure that there's comprehensive training that includes training for those employed by schools, but also employees of youth serving organizations. So they're required to do this training every other year on prevention, identification, and reporting. And that is all related to child sexual abuse. So what this training kind of entitles is being able to both recognize and respond to sexually inappropriate, coercive, or abusive behavior. So really trying to promote prevention. Also, it supports healthy development of students and also the development of protective factors to aid against victimization. It also trains individuals on how to respond to disclosures appropriately or other reports of abuse in general. Okay, and there's also a second kind of requirement of this bill. It enables like youth prevention education. So youth receive sexual abuse education. So this is mainly for schools. This requires that training be age appropriate, so to the level of the individual that's being taught. And also it's kind of similar to the other education, but they're taught to recognize and report inappropriate behaviors in adults, but also with other children. They learn how to develop healthy relationships. So this could include discussions of different boundaries and privacy. They also learn how to effectively communicate their concerns and kind of emphasizing that it be to an adult that is trusted, so trusted adults, and learning who that they can go to for this. And then learning also about available resources in both schools and communities for prevention and response. Okay, and then the next bill that we're going to be going over is called the Save Students Act. This one is basically established to make available in schools that there be a statewide anonymous reporting program, and that's going to be open 24/7. So individuals can report either violent or unlawful activity on school grounds or just related to school personnel in general. So schools will often, additionally, in addition to this, they'll develop safety assessment teams. This is developed to promote public awareness and education about the program and the reporting process so that people feel comfortable reporting. And they'll also require that data be collected on the number of reports received and by which type. Schools will also be provided with educational materials. So this includes evidence-based student violence prevention training. Similar to kind of like the other act, it's enabling students with the tools on how to identify warning signs, how to really take threats seriously and how to seek help, who to go to, and then also how to report a threat. So really just empowering the community to take action against and promote safety. So the benefits of school abuse prevention in general, there's a lot of different benefits, but here are a couple that we're just going to go over. So of course, we want to prevent any type of child abuse in both schools and youth serving organizations. These bills really prioritize the safety and well-being of Massachusetts residents, and it also promotes public awareness of reporting measures. I think not too many people may not be aware of current reporting measures, so making sure we're educating employees and students pretty frequently. It also utilizes evidence-based practice and training, which is something we want to rely on, especially make sure it's research-based and effective. Students and employees will learn to identify the warning signs of violence, sexual violence, suicide, and bullying. So it doesn't just pertain to sexual violence, it's all different types of violence that these bills can help with. Students can also learn how to report to trusted adults, kind of making a network of individuals that they can reach out to when they need help. And data collection is something that allows researchers and just the community itself to do trend analysis. So you can target specific interventions for specific types of violence. So that's why data collection is definitely important here. We also want to create a greater social awareness to potential threats and how communities can intervene. And we can also utilize school and community-based resources, local resources to really assist in prevention, using that kind of community-based action to really boost prevention and promote safety. Okay, next we're going to be going into a little bit on social emotional learning. There's a few different bills here that we're going to be going over. So social emotional learning in general encourages strategies to develop school students' social emotional learning competencies. So there's 5 core competencies that social emotional learning really goes over. The first being self-awareness, self-management. There's also social awareness, relationship building, and responsible decision-making. So those are really the 5 core competencies. There's also training requirements that these bills cover. All school staff need to complete training, and they are also trained by qualified personnel. This is on research-based behavioral interventions and also crisis intervention. This type of learning will give techniques for recognizing and responding to student behavior. There's also strategies for managing and diffusing tense situations, so giving employers and teachers like the needs to kind of diffuse situations. And then also it goes over procedures and protocols for both reporting and responding to crises, and techniques for recognizing and responding to children with autism and other special needs experiencing crises. So really giving, these bills really encourage strategies to promote safety and giving teachers the tools that they need to manage and promote wellness. The next set of bills covers social emotional learning, specifically in athletics. So this is amending a certain section of the general laws, and it's implementing social emotional learning curricula in both middle schools and high schools athletic programs. And it's required that the guidelines will be updated every other year. So this curriculum will cover both students and or teammates and coaches. It is trying to promote safe, supportive, and bias-free cultures in sports. It also provides students with age-appropriate leadership roles. So this allows them to make decisions appropriately, carrying out certain responsibilities, and it also allows them to be empowered and speak up to report any concerning behaviors that they may witness or be apparent to. These bill will also provide lessons and guidance to address various topics such as hate, bias, and negative behaviors. And it also builds and sustains positive relations with others. So kind of basically trying to promote a safe learning environment on the team level and also extending out. And it also develops skills to assist in overcoming physical, social, and emotional obstacles. And that can be through emotional management, conflict resolution, ethical decision-making, and problem solving. So there's a lot of different areas that these bills cover. So there's a bunch of different benefits, again, to social emotional learning. It's really building essential skills and knowledge to develop like a well-functioning and emotionally mature adult. That's why we want to try to start young and build off of it as they go throughout their career or schooling career. These types of learning and different trainings will really teach youth how to manage their emotions and also to develop relationship skills. So we really want to make sure that youth are building social awareness of others' emotions, to try to be empathetic of others around them, but also to manage themselves. And social emotional learning allows that. It also helps individuals develop their decision-making skills to try to contemplate what potentially the consequences of their decisions are as well, and how to recognize and manage their own emotions. That may be difficult for some youth to really recognize what emotions that they're feeling, so this type of training can assist with that. It can also help them demonstrate caring and concern for others, kind of like I was mentioning before, kind of having empathy and also showing that they care for their community members and also their peers. And then also another benefit of social emotional learning is that it makes responsible decisions and constructively handle challenging social situations. So again, this is why we kind of put it in prevention. So we're hoping that social emotional learning will kind of teach students how to appropriately act to situations that may be kind of flagged in their mind and try to prevent any type of violent or abusive situations before they happen. Additionally, it also fosters leadership skills and empowers students to speak up against behaviors, and all with the goal to create bias-free cultures. And I can pass
that
it.
was our, oh, sorry.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I was going to pass it off to Omni now.
So that was our section on K-12 legislation. Before we move on, I wanted to just pause to see if anybody had any questions about that, and just maybe do a quick check-in about how people are feeling and how, are these bills that people were familiar with. I'm honestly going to fully stop sharing for a second. People don't, need to come off camera. It's all good. Do whatever, you feel comfortable with. But just trying to see, maybe in the chat, people could say generally on a scale of 1 to 5, is this stuff that is new to you, or is this stuff that was not new to you? So 5 being I didn't know any of this and now I know a lot, and 1 being, oh, I knew all of this wasn't new to me. Just maybe give us a number in the chat.
Yeah, we tried to make it so that we try to kind of lump the bills together with common topics, because I know it can be confusing sometimes with all the different bill numbers, and committees tend to change bill numbers very often when bills move around. So
awesome. We've got some Some 5s, some 4s, some 3s. Maddie, I really struggle to believe you're 3 because you helped us write the presentation, but thank you anyways. Nice, awesome. All right, any questions so far? You know, you can ask them in the chat or ask them out loud or really whatever you would like. But yeah, any questions about what we chatted about? No? We'll move on if not. Cool. Okay, let's move on. All right. Oh. All right, I'm back to sharing.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so now we're going to talk about these. We have 3 more bills, and these ones are not pertaining to K-12. They may cover K-12 students, but they're not specific to K-12 schools like those other bills were that we discussed. So the first bill we're going to talk about is about intimate image abuse. More specifically, it is the act to prevent abuse and exploitation. And this bill will advance protections against image-based sexual harassment. So image-based sexual harassment or image-based sexual abuse is also known as revenge porn. That's what it's commonly kind of referred to as. So in other words, it's the non-consensual sharing of intimate images that were taken or obtained consensually. So that sometimes kind of confuses people. So what that means is, like, you know, if the classic example is usually that if 2 people were in a relationship and they exchanged nude photos or something similar consensually while in a relationship, and then they break up and one of them then shows those same photos to all their friends or puts them on social media, although the photos were given consensually, they were shared non-consensually. And this is really a gap in legislation. Massachusetts is currently the only one, it's only one of 2 remaining states that do not have protections against image-based sexual violence. So this is really a problem. It's something where Massachusetts is pretty far behind. Now, there was federal legislation on revenge pornography that happened in the last legislative cycle in Congress federally, but that doesn't fully cover everything. It's important to also have it be state-based legislation, and I'm happy to talk about why. But for now, I'll talk a little bit about the bill itself. So this bill creates civil and criminal protection. It provides prevention, education, and diversion programs, which I think is a really big deal. I think that it's really rare that you see that in bills, to have both that civil and criminal, but also have this prevention, education, and diversion. And then also it adds coercive control to the state's definition of domestic abuse. And that's adding it as a basis for restraining order protection. So this is honestly even bigger than just intimate image abuse. This change in definition is actually a really big deal. Like, it has a broader scope than the first part. And so this really is saying coercive control is not currently in the definition for domestic violence within Massachusetts. So this is going to change that definition for all cases, not just intimate image abuse cases. And then also making that a basis for a restraining order is also a really big deal. This is going to help protect survivors. It's going to help prevent ongoing abuse. It's a form of tertiary prevention that'll be really helpful. And for those who aren't familiar, coercive control is a pattern of deliberate behavior by an abuser that substantially restricts another person's safety or autonomy. So happy to go into that if anybody has any questions, but to move forward with the support and the status. So currently, we have a really great quote from Jane Doe Inc. They say, passing this bill reflects the broader spectrum of abuse rooted in systems of power and control and experienced by thousands of people throughout Massachusetts. And you can read Jane Doe's full statement right here. And for those who don't know, Jane Doe Inc. is a organization in Massachusetts dedicated to domestic violence and sexual violence prevention, response, and support. And they are also Jane Doe is also basically the Massachusetts Coalition for Domestic Violence and Sexual Violence, I think. I might have gotten that acronym slightly wrong, but the gist of it is still there. They're the Massachusetts State Coalition. And so the current status of this bill is that it has passed in the House and it's waiting in the Senate Ways and Means Committee. It has not passed the Senate yet, but it has already passed in the House. So it has a really good prospect of passing, and we can just pressure the Senate to move forward. So now we're going to go to a different bill. We're going to go to abusive litigation. This abusive litigation is the misuse of the court system by perpetrators of abuse as a tactic of abusive power and control. So, for example, people who are abusers or perpetrators of abuse will file repeated petitions or motions. They'll request many adjournments. They'll really make the legal process take a long time, and it forces survivors to repeatedly appear in court, and it causes emotional and financial strain. They're forcing the victim to see them regularly, like the abusers forcing the victim to see them. They're forcing them to spend money on a lawyer, to spend time, and all of those things. And one common thing that we've seen most recently is defamation suits being used as abusive litigation. This was something that happened with the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial, but it's also something that happened in the Marilyn Manson case. And so we're seeing, a lot of lawsuits coming up and being used against victims as, basically weaponizing the court system itself as a form of abuse. And so this bill basically is titled "An Act Relative to Controlling and Abusive Language." Sorry, an act relative to controlling and abusive language. And it basically addresses abusive litigation. So the bill empowers the court to stop abusive litigation, increase prevention efforts, and mitigate harm. And it creates a legal definition and a standard for abusive litigation. And so a victim of abuse can request a court order restricting abusive litigation tactics by their perpetrator. So first of all, just creating that legal definition is really big in and of itself. And that definition I can go into if people have questions, or you could definitely look through the bill itself, has to do with repeated filing or filing with little to no grounds, things like that. Because oftentimes, to be very clear, with abusive litigation, sometimes the goal is to win, but a lot of times the goal is actually not to win. The abuser knows that they will likely not win, but they want it to be drawn out in court. They want it to take a really long time, and they want to force the victim to, pay up front for a lawyer and pay and, have to come in person and see them and do all this stuff. They want that because if they stall long enough, the victim may not have additional funds to hire a lawyer, and it just may be a lot more difficult for the victim. And so they're really just trying to stall and make things last longer. So basically, this is going to create protections against that. And then also, if a victim of abuse requests a court order restricting abusive litigation tactics, there needs to be evidence that abusive litigation has happened. But if there is, it basically prevents the abuser from continuing to do this, from continuing to file motions and these other different legal strategies. And also, if a legal proceeding is found to be part of abusive litigation, so if there's a legal proceeding going on, and the victim says this is part of, an abusive form of litigation, they have to look into it, of course, but if it is deemed that it is part of abusive litigation, it is going to be thrown out, and the perpetrator is responsible for all fees and expenses. So that includes court fees, that includes the victim's lawyer fees, but it actually also includes the fee of any fees or costs that the victim incurred, including emotional damages for having to go to court, see the perpetrator, but also if they missed work and any transportation costs that they occurred as well. And so the support and status, this is of course supported by Jane Doe Inc. as well, with Together Rising Above Coercive Coalition and the League of Women Voters. And you can read their support letter here. And right now this is in committee in both the House and the Senate, and a joint hearing took place in September of 2023. Doesn't seem like it has had too much movement since then, but we really want to pressure them to move forward on this. This would be really monumental legislation, and Massachusetts would be one of the first states to move forward with this. It's something we're seeing, as I said, across the country. Right now, I think California is one of the only states that has pretty comprehensive legislation in place for abusive litigation. And so the last one's the jail moratorium. So right now, Massachusetts is planning to spend $50 million of taxpayer money to build a new women's prison to replace the current prison in Framingham, despite falling incarceration rates. And really generally just why expand a system that costs $235,000 per person and only really causes further harm. And so research shows that family separation and poor conditions in prisons and jails fuels community instability, and it negatively impacts public safety. And research also shows incarceration rates are decreasing, and jail also increases recidivism. So in most types of crime, going to jail or prison actually increases the likelihood that the person reoffends and that commits the crime again. And so this bill is basically an act establishing a prison and jail construction moratorium, and it places a pause on prison and jail construction or expansion in Massachusetts for 5 years. And this is going to allow the state to prioritize the spending and investment they would be spending on jails and prisons to instead invest in communities and prevention, such as housing, healthcare, economic opportunities, and social supports. It also allows communities to create sustainable solutions to address the root cause of incarceration instead of continuing to use the system that we know does not work. And right now, the support for this bill comes from Families for Justice as Healing, National Council to End the Incarceration of Women and Girls, Prisoners Legal Services, Mass Peace Action, and Progressive Mass. You can actually read Progressive Mass's full support letter here. It's a really strong support letter. I think it really breaks down exactly why this would cause greater harm to just community and culture in Massachusetts, but also how this money, if it's not going to these jails and prisons, can be used for prevention, for primary prevention, which is such a big deal. And the current status, last session, so the last Congress, this passed, it's not last Congress, but last legislative section in Massachusetts, it passed both the House and the Senate, but Governor Baker vetoed it. RIP. Now it's in the Judiciary Committees in both the House and the Senate. And a joint hearing took place in July of 2023. And then the bill is currently being rushed. So there's actually an emergency preamble. And this is being really prioritized by some legislators because they want to make sure it goes through now. Because the more that this bill that's creating a moratorium doesn't go through, the longer that clock doesn't start on that 5 years, which means that construction may start or projects may be approved before this can pass, which honestly renders the bill useless. And so they need it to move quickly. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to also pause here. We'll do a little check, and then we're going to have people send some letters to their elected officials. But for now, I'm going to do a quick pause and see how are people feeling. Maybe I'll ask a little less open-ended question. Of the bills that we discussed, which are not all on the screen right now, but just based on your memory, was there a particular bill? What bill stood out to y'all the most? You don't need to remember the exact name of the bill, but I'll scroll us up to the top, actually, to the agenda. Basically, we went through bills that covered, oh, wait, I'm not sharing my screen. So this doesn't mean anything. I'm just talking to myself. Here, I'll share my screen again. Based on these, these are the bills that we went through today, was the comprehensive sex education, school abuse prevention bill, social emotional learning, intimate image abuse, abusive litigation, and the jail moratorium. Based on those bills, what bill has stuck out the most to people? What really has stuck out to you? What do you think is the most interesting or is the most pressing to you as an activist, or as an individual, as a constituent? What of the bills we've discussed today is sticking in your mind the most so far? You can just answer in the chat or out loud, whatever people would like.
And just to go over the status of the first bills again, the Healthy Youth Act is being voted on tomorrow. That's going into the Senate Ways and Means Committee. For the school abuse prevention bills, the SHIELD Act was reported favorably by committee. And that was referred to both either in the House version was referred to the House Ways and Means, and Senate was Senate Ways and Means. So those are both positive. And then the SAVE Students Act and all the social emotional learning bills are waiting for a hearing pending on March 15th. So we really want to reach out to our representatives and make sure that they're aware of these bills and to vote favorably on them.
Yeah. So we're going to pause for a second. Just let us know what bill you think right now is the most pressing. We're going to take action on all of the bills, but I just kind of want to see what is, of the ones that we discussed, the most pressing to people. So if you would just want to put in the chat which bill you thought was the most interesting or is the most pressing to you for the Massachusetts legislature. Yeah, so Katie said that the jail moratorium seems like it has potential for positive ripple effects. I definitely agree with that. Montvey, so sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, said that abusive litigation, that he did not expect it to be so thorough and deep, and that it seems ambitious with its attempt to optimize the current system. I completely agree with that. I actually was baffled when I first read this because we've been working on abusive litigation for a little while, and I was just really surprised when I first read through this bill that it was as comprehensive as it was. I have not seen a state bill be this comprehensive to addressing abusive litigation. So I really do hope that bill passes. That's such a big deal, and I think I unfortunately think I think it's going to be an uphill battle just because it's so comprehensive. It's a long bill. There's a lot in there, but I think it would be really strong, and I hope that it would almost serve as an example for other states, because we need more states to take action on this. As I said, right now, California has pretty strong protections, and I want to say Virginia has a couple of protections, but neither of those two states have anything nearly as comprehensive as this bill would be on abusive litigation. And Maddie said that jail moratorium, finding new ways to use funding could be very productive. Yeah, I completely agree. I can give it another another second to see if anybody else has a bill that we talked about that would be the most interesting to them. Oh wait, we have somebody else. Natalia said
Yeah.
comprehensive sex ed and school abuse prevention and social emotional learning are all things I wish were in place when I was in school. I completely agree with that. I wish they were in place when I was in school as well. And these topics used to be such a joke in school and are so important to be gone through thoroughly. I completely agree with that. I went to school, I grew up in Massachusetts, and that's where I was for my education and everything. And it was just was not taken seriously. And it was like, it's hard, I think, to get teenagers to take anything seriously. But yeah, I do think it's really difficult. And totally no worries at all. We're going to send a follow-up email so you can send out anybody who needs to step out. That's totally okay. We're going to send a follow-up email. We have a good amount of people that are going to be watching the recording because they weren't able to attend. All of the information will be in there and you'll be able to send out the letters that way. But for now, we can, here, I'll just run through again. So we talked about the Healthy Youth Act. Let me just get us back to the end. We're just going to flash through all of this because we're going to start sending out the letters. Oh, okay. So a little letter writing campaign. So steps. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, just to kind of add to what Omni was mentioning, I know that we've spoken with like other states in the New England area, and Massachusetts tends to be kind of like a pillar for other states in New England to follow. So hopefully if these bills get passed, it'll kind of be one of kind of like a step in the door for states around us to do something similar.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's so true. Awesome. So we are going to write some letters as long as nobody has any other questions. I want to leave it open. If anybody has any questions about any of these bills, what's their pathway to passing, but also what effect would they have, please let us know. We can go through them. Otherwise, we're going to take action. So, Michelle, you have a draft, right? Okay, cool. So we're going to send, Michelle's about to send some links in the chat for these two bills right here. So not bills, sorry, these two links. So there's one for K-12 bills and there's one for the other bills that we discussed today. So you can just click on those in the chat. They'll be here in just a second, I think.
Yep. Putting them in now.
Awesome. And you're just going to click on that and it's going to guide you through writing a letter to your representatives. And so there's two links. So we're going to have you do the first one, which is K-12, and then the second one, which is more of those like adult bills, the general ones that we went through, the second half of the presentation. So if you want to just click that first one and then follow the directions there, and then that second one and follow the directions there as well. And then once you're done, so each time you do the letters, it's going to send it to your representative as well as your senators. So it's going to send it to, your elected officials basically in the state Congress. So if you just click on those, it's with Action Network, you might have to put in your information and your address. But once you do that, if you want to just share your favorite color in the chat once you finish, and I will, I think, demonstrate one of these.
And it also does allow you to edit the message if you want to personalize it.
Yes, if you do want to add something personal. So I know Natalia just shared some really great information, like very personal information about, like that she wishes that this was in place when she was in school. That's something you can totally add. So you're going to come over here. You're going to click Start Writing. I'm just giving a quick little guide. Oh, wait, hold on. Yours probably isn't going to say Start Writing. Let me start over.
Oh, yeah, because it already had your.
Okay, I lied. You're actually going to start here. I already did the letter, so I don't know if it's going to let me do it. Or they're just going to hear from me twice today. That's fine. They can hear from me twice. So you're going to put in your information. I guess I maybe don't want everyone to know where I live.
Yeah,
right?
your address.
We'll put in fake name and fake last name. Oh, but okay, no, I can't do this with fake stuff. Hold on.
It's going to check your address. It's just making sure that you live in Massachusetts to make sure, or to record it.
No, this isn't the right address either. I'm going to put in an old address. We'll see if that works. Don't dox me, everybody. Just kidding. All right. And then you click Start Writing. Then it's going to first have you do it. So it's first having you do it to my representative, which is Representative Gifford. As you can see, as Michelle was just explaining, you can edit the text right here. And then it talks about the different bills we discussed today. You may notice that, like, it only says the House bills. That's because this is only going to your representative who's in the House. And then you're just going to click send letter. They're just going to hear from me twice, I guess. And now it's sending it to my senator. And very similarly, you just click send letter and it sends it. And that's pretty much it. You can edit the text if you would like to. And then once you are done, we're going to give like, I don't know, we'll give like 5 minutes, I think. Once you're done, just put your favorite color in the chat to tell us that you're done. Remember, you have to do it twice because I know it's 2 different links, but they're 2 different sets of bills. One is about the K-12 bill and the other is about the other bills that we discussed. So just make sure you do it twice, not twice in a row, the 2 different links. And once you do it, just put your favorite color in the chat. And then once we finish, we're going to go on to that last step. We'll probably actually be able to wrap up by 6, which is nice. We can give you all back 30 minutes of your time. I'm embarrassed to say that I had to use spell check on the word turquoise. It's like a lot more vowels in a row than I thought there was going to be. UOI? That's bonkers. Awesome. That looks like it's mostly everybody. So I'm going to have us move on. Keep in mind, if you are not done, totally fine. We're going to send you a bunch of information after this via email, and you can always take action then. All right, we're just going to move on to our final slides. Can you see my screen? Yes, no? You are muted.
Yeah, it's all set.
Cool. Awesome. Conclusion. So first, share with your friends and family. Please, if you could share with 3 people right now. I don't know why I shared my screen. I'm going to immediately have to unshare it. I'll just keep sharing it. If you can share with 3 people right now, that would be great. Once you share with 3 people, you can just... Actually, Michelle, how are they sharing it with 3 people? We haven't sent them the presentation yet.
The email, yeah, it's the email, the follow-up email after the action letter. It sends them an email that they can share.
Yeah, for right now, I guess you don't need to actually share it. Well, you can also share the links we just gave you. You can just share those directly if you would like. Other than that, I would just say maybe think of at least 3 people. Once you've thought of 3 people that you're going to share it with, you can just write it down, decide how you're going to share it. You can share either the links that Michelle already sent in the chat, or you can wait for our follow-up email, which will have the presentation to explain all of the bills, and then also have those links in it as we discussed. But just make sure you plan to send it to at least 3 people. And I realize that may seem like really inconsequential, but that would be really big. It really exponentially grows our impact, and it's very helpful for people. And then as we've been discussing, look for our email with the recording and the additional materials. That email is going to be able to help you send it to other people, because you can just forward the email itself or send the link. But also, we are going to follow up with additional information via email, like, when there's updates on these bills. So you can check the bills yourself using the links in the presentation, like we discussed. So once again, just so... Okay. That didn't work out for me, huh? There we go. Geez, I was just trying to show where the bills are. Once again, at the the slide looks the same for each bill. These are links, so you can click on them to see the bill text. You can also just look them up on the Massachusetts legislator site. So you can check the bills using the link in this presentation, but as I said, we're going to send email updates if anything major is happening, and then look for other bills that you're passionate about and take action. We are going to send a guide and follow-up email. We put everything together really quick and easy for you today so that it wasn't too difficult, but you can also find bills that you're passionate about, and even without the help of an organization, you can just reach out directly to your elected officials. You can find their email address or their phone number. It's usually right on their website, and then you can contact them and say, hey, I heard about this bill. What are you doing to support it? And you could do that for the, as I said, the bills that we discussed today. We have this quick little form you can use, but you can use this for any other bills in the future. And that's all that we have. Any questions or comments? All right, if people could just let us know maybe their main takeaway in the chat, that would be awesome. And then everybody can head out. What is your main takeaway from today? Something you learned or something you're going to do? It doesn't really matter. Either your action item or something that you learned today, your biggest takeaway. Amazing. Thank you, Ryan. I love that. Ryan said that they're going to send this to 3 people they know to get the word out. Natalia said that she knows way more about these bills and how easy, oh my gosh, how easy she can contribute to helping them pass. Yes, definitely. I love that. Anissa, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, said, I learned a lot more about bills focused on adults and want to share that info with my friends. Yes, we love when people share with other people. Grassroots organizing is great. Teddy talked about how consent is very important to sex ed. Yes, I completely agree. Katie accidentally sent a direct message to me, which I think was meant to everybody, is saying that she learned about the importance of state legislation despite federal laws existing. Yes, I talked about that with regards to revenge pornography. That is such a big thing to discuss. We're working on a federal bill as an organization right now called the Defiance Act. And our goal is to have that passed at a federal level, but we also want to work on it at a state level afterwards. Federal legislation can only go so far, and getting grounds for a court case at the federal level is very different than getting grounds for a court case at the state level. And then Maddie said, there are so many different bills and simple ways to help them pass. Yes, I completely agree. There are just so many ways to get involved, and so many small things that we can do that make a pretty big impact on what our elected officials decide to do. That is all that we have. If anybody has additional questions or wants to ask us something one-on-one, I'm sure Michelle and I will be staying on afterwards. Oh wait, we have one more person. We have somebody saying that they sit on the board for homeless youth in Philadelphia and will share. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's really unfortunate with foster youth when people age out. I think the foster population is one population that we've discussed as an organization that faces significant amounts of sexual violence and is often overlooked by the state and by government agencies, which is really terrifying. So I appreciate you saying you're going to share it with people. That's great, and thank you for all the work you're doing. But awesome, that's all we have. If people have specific questions, let us know, and we can stay after, as I said, or you can email us our contact information. I'm not sharing my screen anymore, so I guess I'll just send our contact information. But thank you all for attending. You can reach out to us this way. Oh, Katie, I just made the same exact mistake and sent you my email, even though you have it. But that's it. Everybody can hop off.
Thank you so much, everyone.